In 2011, an American teacher and her colleague were kidnapped by pirates in Somalia for a $45 million ransom. The U.S. government has warned the perpetrators that they will accept $1,500,000 for the Americans' freedom, otherwise they will taste a cruel revenge. But the pirates stubbornly believed that they could single out then-President Barack Obama, and unknown to them, 24 of the most ruthless members of U.S. Navy SEAL Team 6 were coming to show the bandits that no evil group can play with fire with the U.S. government. This is the true story of the cool rescue operation of Jessica Buchanan at the hands of Somali pirates that seems like you can only watch in a movie. Jessica Buchanan is an ordinary teacher in Ohio, USA, with an extraordinary dream, not just for her own country, but for places of great need. Aside from teaching English, he also teaches basic knowledge in Somalia under the non-profit organization he is a part of, the Danish Refugee Council. The organization aims to protect people from hunger, disease, terrorism, and more. Although the organization's goal is noble and heroic, it is sad to think that one of the things Jessica has to teach young people living in dangerous parts of Somalia is how to avoid active landmines that are scattered throughout the country. In October 2011, Jessica was assigned to a demining assignment near the so-called Green Line of Somalia. One part of the Green Line is controlled by the government and affected by the law, and the other part is ruled by extremists, terrorists, and bandits. The Green Line was one of the most dangerous areas in Somalia at the time due to frequent clashes between groups trying to rule the region. Before she left for this assignment, she jokingly texted her husband Eric, asking if she was kidnapped on this trip, would her husband come to rescue her? But unknown to her, that joke would come true in a few moments. Jessica completed the assignment at Green Line without incident, but on October 25, aboard their land cruiser, Jessica and fellow Danish volunteer Poul Hagen Theisden were about to head to the airport to return to their headquarters in Denmark, while her colleague was busy checking their equipment and reporting to their office. Jessica noticed that the driver who picked them up at their office was someone else. Although she had a slight hunch, she did not confront the driver because they were late for their scheduled flight. But after her colleague got into the car, Jessica's journey that seemed like a highway to hell began. According to her, the driver was terrified to drive. He was constantly stepping on the accelerator and did not have the nerve to brake or turn. Jessica was said to have hit the car window and even her head several times. But before she could complain about their mysterious driver's driving, after 10 minutes, they suddenly stopped at a strange location. A few moments later, several dozen men emerged from the various vehicles surrounding them and quickly ran towards the vehicle carrying Jessica and Paul. Before Jessica could react, she saw a commotion and shouting. The masked bandits' eyes showed that they had been drinking or were under the influence of illegal drugs. Their eyes were wide awake, red, and glazed. A few moments later, a man opened the door of their Land Cruiser and seemed to be arguing with the driver in Somali. At this time, Jessica confirmed her hunch, and she could not believe that the people she had sworn to help were the very people who would recruit her for the ideology she was fighting against. The two could do nothing but follow the orders of the armed men. When an accomplice's AK-47 is pointed at your face, you will definitely lose control of your own life. Words of fear and anxiety are not enough to describe what Jessica felt at that moment. According to her, the first thing that came to her mind was that the men would rape her before killing her, and she repeatedly said that this would not be the last. "I don't have children yet. I'm only 32 years old. I haven't even said goodbye to my husband and father yet. It's impossible." While anxious and shocked by her desperate situation, she heard a shrill voice from the back of the Land Cruiser she was riding in. When she turned around, she saw a young girl armed with a long caliber gun. According to her, the girls seemed to be a minor and a trainee. Women were her priority in their organization. That's why she was sorrowful and disappointed that there were young people who preferred this kind of life. After just a few minutes, the kidnappers covered their heads and pointed guns at their backs and told them to close their eyes and sleep. Jessica was surprised that one of them knew English. In short, apart from their organized vehicle changes along the way and the recruitment of an English-speaking companion, this capture of them was planned. When they arrived at the place where the hostages Kano and Danish were being held, he immediately asked the guard assigned to him, "Why are we here? Because you're going to kill us?" The participant immediately responded using the little English he knew and said, "No, money. We just want money." When Jessica asked how much they needed in exchange for their freedom, the participant said without hesitation, 45 million. We want 45 million. This is where Jessica's heart broke, and she seemed to have lost hope, even if they pooled her life savings with her fellow hostages. It was impossible for them to give the terrorists what they wanted. So America sent the bravest and most skilled SEAL Team 6. Considered the best of the best for this type of situation. Even before the combat action, the White House and the kidnappers had talked several times to get the deal through the bureaucracy. The White House agreed to give $1,500,000 in exchange for the hostages' safety. But after 93 days of negotiations, the terrorists did not agree to the American offer. In fact, $1.5 million was enough for all of them to live well for 30 years, according to a finance expert. But because they thought they could play the US when it came to such negotiations, the group became stubborn and threatened to kill their captives if the US still did not agree to their conditions. During those 3 months, the situation of Jessica and her companion worsened. Every day, their captors fed them only once. They shared 1 can of tuna and 1 loaf of bread to get through the day. There were times when they were put under a tree, the sun was shining, or it was raining. Because of this, Jessica's health condition deteriorated. In fact, in the videos released by the kidnappers, we can see Jessica's body falling. Her body had lost almost 12 kilos. In addition to that, he complained of pain in his side that seemed to spread throughout his body. According to medical experts consulted by the White House, at that time Jessica may have been suffering from a kidney infection or a severe UTI. And if the right medicine and treatment are not given immediately, the poor teacher could have died from complications of the disease. This was also her sentiment when the pirates released the last video as a warning that if the US does not give the 45 million they are demanding, that would be the last time they would see Jessica and her companion alive. And it seems that the kidnappers are in a hurry because, according to Jessica herself in the video that was released, the US needs to act quickly, otherwise they could be gone the next day. January 25, 2012, at dawn, while almost dying of weakness, hunger, and fear for her life, Jessica raised her eyes to the sky and seemed to be saying her last prayers to the bright stars in the sky that they would be saved from the situation they were in. But before he could finish his prayers, 24 brave soldiers from the other side of the world were on their way to attack the enemy's base by walking so that the terrorists would not be alarmed by the arrival of the Navy SEALs. At this time, SEAL Team 6 was in Djibouti, 800 kilometers from Jessica's location. For both sides, it would have been better if the terrorists had accepted the $1.5 million for their benefit, but the US was forced to spend hundreds of millions of dollars for this operation. You would think they should have just paid to save money, but if they did this, it would be a statement that the US would easily give in to the pirates. And if they gave in to the conditions of the pirates, it would only mean that money is more important than the well-being of their citizens. So even though the mission was expensive and dangerous, this was the best solution the US could think of. If you think that the kidnappers used force first, then they probably made a mistake, because it was only a matter of time before SEAL Team 6 would confront their twisted beliefs. The entire White House was monitored via live feed. After 3 hours, the C-130 reached the soldiers' drop-off point. Without wasting any time, the troops immediately parachuted and landed. They immediately set their gear and quickly headed to the kidnappers' location. Cautious, quiet, and polished, their elite training was evident in the troops' movements. They also changed directions several times so that the enemy would not see them. After scouting the area, SEAL Team 6 surrounded the camp of the Somalian kidnappers where Jessica and Paul were to have a better chance of entering it. But one of the kidnappers heard a sound and immediately opened fire, so the sniper, who was already focused on him, wasted no time. The first kidnapper immediately fled. Because of this, his colleagues also woke up to climb up to their PKM machine guns. And for the leader of the group, Justin Sheffield, this is the moment they have been waiting for. The infrared beams from their guns are already focused. To the enemy, the infrared beam is invisible to the human eye. It can only be seen if you are wearing night vision goggles, and when the enemy fired in different directions, SEAL Team 6 knew exactly what to do. While the kidnappers fired almost indiscriminately, every bullet that came out of the guns of the members of SEAL Team 6 was aimed. It was obvious that they were very prepared for such situations. Every move was calculated and every shot of the gun was sure. Without a command or a hint of any instruction from their commander, the kidnappers' attack did not last a minute. Snipers from SEAL Team 6 took the lives of 80 Somali kidnappers. The group immediately swept the location and saw Jessica very scared and wrapped in a blanket. Jessica was hiding and protecting herself from Somalis who might hurt her. But when she heard the soldiers' words, an accent which translated into English, it was, "Jessica, we are American military colleagues. We are here to bring you back to the US. You are safe with us." Jessica couldn't believe she had heard that voice after 3 months of being constantly traumatized by the voices of Somalis. At last, a familiar voice brought her a sense of comfort. A moment later, a man picked her up and the men of SEAL Team 6 immediately surrounded Jessica. Just minutes after the operation, Jessica and Paul were loaded into a helicopter that was waiting for them at an extraction point. As she was climbing up, a soldier approached her and gave her an American flag. When she was asked to thank her, the soldier told her, "Ma'am Jessica, welcome home." And here Jessica cried a lot because after 3 months of suffering and facing death, she would once again taste freedom in her homeland. 9 bandits were killed in the encounter and countless others fled. When the group arrived at an airbase in Somalia, the brave SEAL Team 6 who rescued Jessica worshipped in a helicopter. Their faces were seen too much, but she felt eternal gratitude for the soldiers and for her country. After the operation, US President Barack Obama himself called Jessica's father to inform him that the operation was successful. Jessica and her husband Eric met at the US base in Italy, and as for the pirates, I hope they would have just gladly accepted the $1.5 million that the US was willing to pay. They would not have faced the worst nightmare that ended their lives. This story was published in various news and social media outlets and in Jessica's book titled Impossible Odds. And although she personally experienced the cruelty at the hands of terrorism, Jessica still continued her advocacy to eradicate it. Currently, she lives with her husband and their 2 children in Washington, D.C. in the United States.